sometimes we don't win. Don't give us a bird, don't give us your stink eye. We try our best and we're successful. Come watch our show, Bet River sponsors. It's time to start, enjoy the show.
Well, good day to everyone here on Betting Weekly Live. It's Wednesday, the 6th of November with Steve Wyss, and professional gambler Will White is alongside me for another Champions League edition. Will, how was your Tuesday in the UCL? Were you profitable?
I had a good night, Steve. Good day to you, by the way, and to all the viewers out there. I had a good one yesterday. As contrarian is my style, having Sporting and Celtic were kind of my two biggest positions, and both won. So yeah, good day for me yesterday, and a late night on the election, which we won't go into, but it was a late night on the election too. So looking forward to today's card, though.
Yeah, we had a very good show yesterday. We were winning. Me and Nigel were on good form. I actually hit my best bet in the Celtic game with the over, but I've got to be honest, I thought that it was going to be Leipzig getting the goals. There wasn't a lot of love for Celtic in the comments. A couple were going for them, but they played really well. I've got to give it to Celtic. Genuinely deserved the win on the night. But yeah, lots of winners, and I hope anyone watching managed to profit. Good day, everyone. Thanks for the comments even before the show. Felix likes Benfica on the handicap. Mingchun with a comment about the German teams. Will come to them soon. Rich, good to see you. J-Rod, as always. Foxy and Duncan. And as always, we start with the two early games with the Champions League. We've got Shakhtar against Young Boys and Club Brugge against Aston Villa. Shakhtar always seem to be giving this early slot, Will, when they're at home. They are minus money favourites, which that doesn't maybe feel quite right with me. They've been really poor in this competition. This is a battle between two teams who have stunk out the Champions League, to be fair. Young Boys have been awful, and domestically as well, for that matter. I think they're third bottom of the Swiss league still. For those who do like Young Boys, burn plus 310 on the money line here. Minus 143 for over 2.5 goals. Nigel flagged up a bet yesterday in the Slovan game, over 2.75, basically saying that both teams might as well go for it because they were struggling, felt like they could beat each other. Is this another one of those sort of theory games, if you want to call it that way? Will they both think, open it up and go for the win? Is this over territory or not? Because the stats don't point that way.
I'm not so sure, Steve. Like, the line is kind of priced like that. It's kind of in between 2 3/4 and 3 for two teams that neither has actually scored in this year's Champions League so far. Both teams have lost to 0 in 3 out of 3 matches. I'm not so sure we can say that Shakhtar have got home advantage here. It's at neutral territory in Gelsenkirchen, which, they're probably more used to playing there than Young Boys are, but it's definitely a reduced home field advantage. I'm not really sure whether we can expect to see goals just because both teams need to win. Like, sometimes that will lead to a cagey type of approach to the game as well. So I'm not sure that's set in stone. I do think both teams to score no actually might be interesting at plus 118, just because it's such a big price. It's not often you see a price that big these days. And given neither team has scored in this year's edition so far, it just looks a bit off. But it's not a bet for me. It's not even a lean, really, to be honest. I just think it's an interesting price. My real lean here is Shakhtar minus 0.5. There's been quite a bit of money for them this morning, so the price is a bit lower than I'd like right now, but I think they are vastly the superior team. I'm not really that high on this Young Boys team at all. Like you say, they're even doing quite poorly domestically, and I think if Shakhtar had a real home field advantage here, I'd definitely be backing them, but at the moment it's just a lean for me.
Yeah, I was going to say you must be pretty low on Young Boys burn to be considering Shakhtar, because I think Shakhtar have been really poor so far. I mean, the game the most recent home game they had, I think Atalanta could have scored 7 or 8 against them. I mean, Atalanta are a lot better than Young Boys, though, it must be said. So, I mean, I can't get involved in this. I rarely get involved with Shakhtar Donetsk games very often. As you know, me and the Ukrainian teams don't have a great relationship. So for me, it was a clear no. But I mean, I was leaning over 2.5 goals just on the theory side. But when you've got two very poor teams, it's a tricky one. Just
the minus 143. It's if that was minus 125, I'd be with you. I'd be all over the overs. But at minus 143, you've got to be getting it right more than 60% of the time, and it's just it's a bit too short, I think.
Subamon Gaucho like Shakhtar money line as well. So I think it's going to be one of those nights where if anyone is betting on a team, it will be the Ukrainian outfit. Remember, it's on a neutral ground in Germany at the Veltins Arena in Schalke, for those who are not aware of that. Club Brugge against Aston Villa. Seen quite a few comments in the chat already about Villa. People liking Villa here. Plus 114 now on the money line as we go live. Club Brugge at plus 235. Over 2.5 goals at minus 124. Villa's form has just gone off a little bit in all competitions recently. I mean, including EFL Cup with that, which is probably a bit unfair on them. 100% record in the Champions League. Club Brugge are a side I know you don't mind them, actually, Club Brugge, historically, Will. Not a lot of line movement here. I mean, Villa did open up about plus 105 a week or two ago. They're a pretty solid favourite here, Aston Villa. Are you a bit worried about what you saw in the Spurs game at the weekend or not? I mean, they're flying in Europe, though. Club Brugge lost 2 out of 3. This is just their second home fixture. Played quite well against Dortmund. Match day 1, but lost 3-0. I do have a lean here in this game, and only a lean over 2.5 goals at minus 124, but I couldn't really say it with a surety. Villa, certainly the more classier side.
Yeah, it was kind of concerning seeing that second half against Spurs, wasn't it? They really kind of seemed to be out on their feet toward the end of that game. This is the kind of game where normally I'd be high Bruges and I'd be backing them plus 0.5. Normally, in previous seasons, that's the handicap we'd be looking at here. But I think that poor performance or poor kind of end of the game against Spurs has really affected the market here, and hence why we're seeing the plus 1/4 main line. And at that level, I can't really get involved with Bruges just because, I mean, normally I'd be arguing, Bruges, it's a tough place to go. They've got a big home advantage. But look at their last 3 home fixtures in the Champions League: 2-0, 3-0, 4-0 losses versus teams similar to Villa's standard. I think it was Porto, Benfica, and Dortmund, if I remember rightly. And if I remember rightly, sorry, late night with the election. I'm actually leaning Villa minus 1/4 here, which is really against my style. But it's only a lean. I do really like one player in the shot on target market, though, and that's Morgan Rogers to have over 0.5 shots on targets plus money, plus 102. Certainly one of the most informed Villa players, one of their brightest stars, key attacking players. Brugge are averaging 4 shots on target against per 90 this season in the Champions League, which is not actually that bad considering they've faced Dortmund and AC Milan. But Villa are averaging 5 shots on target per 90, which is quite high. Rodgers himself is 0.78 per 90 in all competitions this season, so he shouldn't be plus money. You'd imagine he'll start, and if he starts, he's going to start just off Watkins or maybe Duran if Duran starts. But he's just becoming such a key component of this Villa attack. It's hard to see them being fewer games where he gets a shot on target than games where he does.
Morgan Rogers, I actually own him. Anyone who plays Fantasy Premier League, he's a great budget asset in that game this year. And he was actually subject of a lot of news articles at the start of this week because he took a knock against Spurs, but he was seen fully participating in training. Duran as well, there was an interesting sort of shot of him having an argument with Emery. I think Duran wants to play more games. Simple as that. Yeah. And why wouldn't he want to? Because he's really fantastic. He's got to be one of the best players who doesn't start games regularly in the entire Premier League. They did player cams there. It says they did have a bit of a ding dong in training. I don't know whether Emery's going to bow down, give him the start here against Club Brugge. But yeah, quite a few generally quite liking Villa here. And Morgan Rogers' shot on target is plus money, which is a recommendation from you there, Will. And someone just go back to J Rod's question. They're not playing in Ukraine. No, it's in Germany, in Schalke, the Veltins Arena. They've not always played the matches in Germany. Sometimes it's been Poland, I think. Mm-hmm. Hungary might have held the odd game as well. Yeah. So, but this is in Germany, just to make absolutely sure. Duncan, I like that one. Duran is hungry like the wolf. Bring on the Duran puns. Let's bring on the late fixtures. This is 3 p.m. Eastern time games. So many more cracking contests. Paris Saint-Germain against Atletico Madrid. Now, there's been a big move for PSG this week. I mean, I managed to get on them around about minus 133 on the money line 2 or 3 days ago. They're now as short as minus 225 at the time of going live. There's been even more money for them in the last few hours. I mean, the Asian handicap line, I think, is knocking on the door of minus 1.25, which is, I mean, I wouldn't back that. But I do like PSG here to win the game. Atletico Madrid plus 600. And we've got a goal line that's quite high as well, generally around the 3 Asian mark overall. In terms of actual match result, I can't really see. I think PSG win the game. I don't like what I'm seeing from Atletico in Europe. But in terms of the value now, for those who are after a play on the game, I've got an interesting corner angle I'm going to come up with in a minute, which is one of my best bets of the day. But PSG at minus 225. Could you be having that, Will? Is that accurate?
Wow, yeah, that's a great intro to the game, Steve. And it's kind of this is one of the games that reflects perfectly my theory about, as a bettor, we should either bet early or we should bet late. We should not be betting in the kind of middle market kind of period, whatever that is. Let's say early morning day of game to up until about now. Now is where us late bettors should be getting involved, or you get involved early when the market opens and you spot some value. And this is a game where you could have topped and tailed the market. I think that PSG opener was way too big. And well done for getting on it at minus 133. I looked at the game last night. It was kind of around minus 150 money line. And I was kind of tempted by PSG there, but thought it was a little bit short at that point. I hadn't done much research into the game, mind. And then when I saw it minus 200 this morning, to be honest with you, I started getting interested in Atleti on the plus 1.25, plus 1.25 Asian line. But I did a bit more research, and you know, Atleti have had a poor start to the season. They've got a similar problem to Real Madrid in trying to incorporate key signing Alvarez into their setup. But I think defensively, there are huge concerns. Jimenez is out here. He's suspended. Lenormand has been another big off-season signing, has been injured now for weeks. They're going to be setting up with a back four of Lenglet, Axel Witsel, Molina and Galan. I mean, it doesn't inspire confidence. So my lean on Atleti plus 1 is being postponed at the very least to see whether they get to the plus 1.25 line, which I can't fathom we actually see. But on the other hand, PSG, clean bill of health, obviously flying, and up against this Atleti backline, which is decimated. It's led me again to the shots on target market, where if he starts, and I think he might, it's probably 70% likely Asensio starts and 30% likely Kangin Lee starts as that kind of false 9 for PSG. But Marco Asensio is my pick. He's minus 134 to have at least one shot on target. I think it's astronomical. He averages a whopping 2.37 per 90 this season, which is obviously small sample size. He probably starts as the central striker with lots and lots of PSG weapons and ammo providers, chance creators. And the added kicker here is that I wouldn't be surprised if Marco Asensio is very, very keen to get onto the score sheet here against his former rivals Atleti. Obviously, he's ex-Real Madrid, ex-Mallorca, then Real Madrid, and he'll be super keen to fire here. So yeah, Marco Asensio to have at least one shot on target, that's over 0.5. Minus 134 is a really good bet as far as I'm concerned.
I really like the PSG corners here. So go into the corners market on Bet Rivers, and it's the three-way spread, and PSG starting 0-2. So this is effectively minus 2.5 on the corners handicap, and you can get odds here of minus 107. PSG have out-cornered their opponents 25-5 in the Champions League so far this season. They would have covered this handicap against all the teams, including Arsenal away from home, Girona and PSV, and they are likely to really dominate territorially here. They have had a lot of shots in this Champions League, PSG. I think the average is about the second or third most shots of any team. They haven't always, their actual XG is not as high as it could be, but they're firing a lot of shots in. This is the sort of game at the end of it, you could probably see PSG getting 20 or more shots, and especially if they haven't scored, say in the first half. And, Atletico are not known for being a corners team themselves. I think there's 10 or 11 teams in La Liga who average more corners per game than them. So, I'm not always a corner man that often, but I can't get away from this in terms of the stats and the playing style and how I think the game will go. So I do like PSG on the handicap on the corners. Another way of playing it, you could play them on their individual corner handicap over 5.5. But, if it ended, say, 4-1 in corners, then you wouldn't win that way. So corners, I do like that. I'm just looking back at some of the comments now. Alexander Byrne says Aston Villa and Atalanta over 1.5, and Bayern over 6.5 corners, 13-2 parlay there. PSG moneyline under 4.5 gets you plus 100. That's quite a big price actually. Now that's not a bad angle in from Superman Gaucho.
Very big, yeah.
That is a good one. Coach Janko was destroyed by City and Leipzig yesterday. I think they did do quite a lot dirty, didn't they? PSG referee loves the cards. It's the best referee in the world, I think, isn't it? Szymon Miciniak is in charge, the Polish ref. He generally doesn't take any nonsense, to be fair, Frederick. So I could see that for you liking PSG on the handicap easily. And Asensio shot on target for you, corners for me. Final thoughts on this game, Will?
I was going to ask you, Steve, what do you make of Mbappe leaving PSG and them getting better and going to Madrid and them getting significantly worse? I think the PSG side of the equation makes a little bit more sense, but do you think they're as good as the underlying stats suggest? Do you think they're contenders to win this year's tournament?
I remember when they got knocked out by Dortmund in the semi-final last year, I tweeted something out and I said, that is the best chance they will have to reach the final and perhaps to win the tournament in 4 or 5 years, because to win Champions League, you usually need at least one absolute world-class player at your disposal, and they had it with Mbappe. But, there was a couple of responses that came to me and was like, they're probably going to be now better as a sum in terms of a team overall. Sure. And that might help them. But I think what's happened is Barcola, for example, I think he's the next sort of really big.
Up, doesn't he?
He is going to become world class. Some might, he's not at that level yet, but he could be the one. And they have signed well in the the midfield of PSG is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's right up there in terms of one of the best in Europe, and they've got depth as well. So they might be going under the radar just because they're a better team overall. And the manager, we know, doesn't take any BS. He will discipline players and I think he commands quite a bit of respect as well, Luis Enrique. So maybe they're a contender. Maybe they need a bit of luck with the draw still, and it's a big monkey on their back about not winning this tournament yet. We know the pressure's on them. So, but it's an interesting question. We've got one question for both of us here. We might answer this at the end actually from Player Cam. Which game will have the most goals in it tonight? Right now, I think I would go along the lines of the Barcelona fixture. Simple as that, just because they're such a big favourite. Let's move on to the next game. Sparta Prague against Brest. This is a great talking point, actually. I like under 2.5 goals here, Will, and I did like Sparta Prague. But there's some important team news that we need to talk about for this game, and these are players that I've talked about before. Bia Mancevic and Haraslin. 2 really strong attackers for Sparta Prague, might be doubtful to play. In fact, I did see sources saying that they're ruled out. I'm not entirely sure about that. So do wait until the lineup. Zelezny as well, a defender, could be out. And Preciado, the Ecuadorian international, is doubtful. On the flip side for Brest, Sima, who's had a good season for them, the former Rangers man, is likely injured. So based on that, I was thinking there's not going to be who's going to score the goals in this game. Sparta Prague against Brest. Brest have done remarkably well in this Champions League so far, and I think they might have looked out again, Will, with this team news, that things are going their way in this competition. And I just sense that I wouldn't be shocked if they nick this 1-0 or something now. But I am struggling to see where the goals come from. And there's not many matches now that are favourites with under 2.5 goals in the league phase of the Champions League. But this one looked like, I think it's a solid bet for me. For those who were watching yesterday, reminds me a bit of the Monaco game against Bologna. And I'm say under 2.5 would be my recommendation. Which direction would you be looking at?
Yeah, the team news is disappointing to me too, because I wanted to be with Sparta Prague here. As frequent viewers of this show will know about myself, is I'm quite high on the Czech league, particularly on Sparta and Slavia. But those two are big misses for them here. You could argue we wouldn't be seeing plus money on the -1/4 if they were fit. Probably true, but they are big pieces. And my thoughts are, I think obviously Brest have had a great start to this campaign, 2 wins and 1 draw so far. But I do think their one away game away to Salzburg, 4-0 win, which looks great on paper. I think it flattered them a little bit. We've spoken about them before and how Salzburg were dominating that game until they had a goal disallowed and Brest went up the other end and went 1-0 up. But Sparta have been quietly pretty good. Obviously, they were dominated away to City, but lots of teams will go there and get dominated. But prior to that, they were pretty impressive in an away draw to Stuttgart, where they were on a +1.25 handicap, and then they dominated Salzburg themselves at home. So, if you boil down, if you distill that sample size to the away game that Brest have played, where they beat Salzburg but were flattered, and then the complete domination of Salzburg by Sparta in their home game, I think all things considered, these two teams are probably about the same standard, and 1/4 of a goal is probably not enough to adjust for the home field advantage. So, I do side with Sparta here, but it's only a lean given the absences. It's a shame, really.
Yeah, just a lean there for you on Sparta Prague, and quite a strong selection for me, under 2.5 goals. I just don't see how there's that many chances, and who's going to put the ball in the back of the net. Interestingly, 61% of the tickets and 55% of the money is on Brest, actually on the underdog in this game, which is maybe a little bit unusual. So there's perhaps a public dog here, Brest, and I can see why that is. The most wagered game of the day in terms of handle with Bet Rivers is PSG versus Atletico. 35% of overall money is on that game, and a whole Champions League card tonight, which doesn't surprise me with the amount of comments we had about that game. The Barcelona game is second on that list, by the way. So let's move on again. Just actually go through some comments before we do that. I think Sparta will get something here. Brest haven't been tested on the road, says Reese Williams. Why have the French team suddenly been good in Europe? They have actually been a lot better than normal, to be fair to them this season. I don't know whether it's this new league phase, which is freeing up teams, less pressure. You're not involved in a group where you've got 3 other teams only. It kind of changes week to week, doesn't it? So maybe that suits the French teams. Under, says Nigel. Draw, says Kirk Schreier. Is the 0-0 detector in operation here? And Ginepi says Lille and Monaco always solid in Europe. Brest are actually on one. They're on a tear this year. It just feels like things are going their way in the Champions League. Inter against Arsenal next. And let's have a look. Inter now +170 on the money line. Arsenal +175. Under 2.5 goals is at -141 at the time of going live. This is one of the unusual matches. Quite a short priced under favourites. Now, for those who actually subscribe to the newsletter and got the first newsletter, one of my exclusive pick of the week in the Champions League is on this game. So I'm not going to repeat it here. Let's keep it exclusive. So I'm going to ask for your opinion on this game, Will. Inter against Arsenal. How do you see it going? Have you got any bets, any suggestions?
I mean, on the surface, it's a fantastic game, isn't it? But I think if you scratch beneath the surface, perhaps both teams will be prioritising up-and-coming games at the weekend. Inter have got Napoli at home, and Arsenal have got Chelsea away. And in classic Inzaghi Premier League, Champions League style, it looks like he's probably going to be resting and rotating here. The likes of Barella, Thuram, DiMarco, and Mkhitaryan are all suspected to start on or expected to start on the bench. I wouldn't be surprised if Arteta does the same. Arsenal kind of look a bit stretched here. They've had a few injuries. They've got Odegaard back in the squad for the first time in a long time. I don't think he'll start. But I think we're looking at two teams here that probably would be happy with a point, probably have bigger things on the horizon. And with rotated lineups, I can see the angle into unders. I do lean the under 2.25 line. I think we can see especially tight opening to the game. In terms of the main Asian handicap, initially I was thinking, look, if Inter are going to rotate, I want to get on them in the second half. And so I was kind of going to recommend a bet on Inter Asian handicap live kind of after 50, 60 minutes. But the more I think about it, the more I think Arsenal might rotate as well. So it might be worth just getting on Inter on the draw no bet on the +0 Asian line right away. But just given there's so much uncertainty around this game and how both teams are going to approach it lineup-wise, motivation-wise, kind of effort-wise, I guess, I think it's just a lean on both of those on Inter and under 2.25.
A few interesting comments here. Nigel says under 2.5 goals, best bet of the night for him. That 0-0 detector is in operation for Nige there. A few quite liking into moneyline. Reese, though, reckons Arsenal moneyline, defending on the route. I mean, I think it's one of those games, maybe we do have to wait for these lineups, for those who want to be more sure about what they're betting on. And then I suppose you've got to factor in what's going to happen in the second half when subs and stuff come on. Havertz for a yellow, says Harry Doherty, that'll be +400. Averaging, yeah, I mean, he certainly has a high foul average as Havertz, doesn't he? Gives away a lot of cheap free kicks. Foxy says after seeing Inter play a basketball game against Juve and Arsenal the same, it's a stay away. So this sort of fixture, it's kind of annoying people about this new Champions League format, that it's a big game. PSG, when they went to Arsenal, was similar. But a lot of these big teams are actually rotating even in the big games because they're looking ahead, thinking, oh, we'll get our easy points against the teams from pot 2, 3, and 4 and just take a draw against, in the higher profile games. So I can see the point on both sides, really. Odegaard, I'm not sure will feature in here, but if he does, then Gaucho's got an interesting stat there along the lines. So, that's Inter against Arsenal. By the way, for the newsletter, it will be a weekly newsletter given out. And I'm just going to put it in the comments here. If you're new to the channel today, then do subscribe to that, and you'll get it in your inbox every Monday. So let's talk about the final game at the bottom of that list there. It's a Stuttgart against Atalanta. I've got absolutely nothing for this game, Will, at all, which is a bit surprising. I like both teams. I think it's a battle between two exceptionally good coaches. Stuttgart +155, Atalanta at +163. The tie is +265, and we got an over 2.5 goal line at -167. Stuttgart actually opened up a lot shorter in the betting around when it first came out. Yeah, as short as like +130 in some places, I think, Will, for this game. But I've got nothing. You've got a few angles, though, which relieves me of my duties for this game. I've just got this down as I've got one word, like tough. I can't make head or tail of this one. It could end absolutely anything. I need my 3-sided coin here. Talk us through the Will White betting approach for Stuttgart against Atalanta.
Is it a Will betting approach? I'm not sure it's a betting approach, but it's some thoughts. Both teams have had impressive start to the campaign. Maybe not necessarily in terms of like raw results, but certainly Atalanta deserve to beat Arsenal match day 1 and Celtic in match day 3, and Stuttgart deserve more from particularly that Madrid game that we I believe we were both on +1.75 that day, which was just brutal. But conclusion wise, I'm pretty high on both these teams. But given the market movement towards Atalanta here, my model's screaming value on Stuttgart plus on draw no bet, basically +0 Asian line, which is around about -110, which just feels too big. But I can't help but think that matchup-wise, this might be quite bad for Stuttgart, and I think they might be vulnerable on the counter to Atalanta hitting them in transition. And it's also hard to oppose Lookman in the form he's in, Lookman, Atalanta player. So conclusion is certainly lean Stuttgart on the plus 0 Asian line, but to bet and to pull the trigger, I think I'm looking for plus money. I do think it's a bad matchup for them.
I mean, Atalanta might be the best team in Europe that no one talks about, even after winning the Europa League last year. I mean, I've seen some tweets about Gasperini, who I think he had a coaching stint at Inter, which didn't go down well. But take that out, then he's got a great track record, especially as kind of an underdog against these type of teams. I remember he did a great job on Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, didn't he, last year at Anfield? So, and Stuttgart kind of do play similar. But I think Stuttgart have been focusing. This might be a weird thing to say. I think they've been prioritising the Champions League. I think they've dropped some points or played poorly domestically because they've had their eye on this prize. And I mean, their performance at Juventus was sensational. I couldn't believe how good it was. So this is why I can't get involved in the game, really, Stuttgart versus Atalanta. There was a question about the German teams being a bit under par this week. I mean, Dortmund won yesterday, but didn't really do much, did they? Bad from Leverkusen. Leipzig have been on it, seem to be on everyone's blacklist now. Is that a concern for Stuttgart and Bayern, or are we just? Is this a bit of recency bias where just from day to day where we've got to look at? We talk about the Bayern game in a minute, but surely the Germans aren't just going to have a whole bad week because they're German.
Yeah, I'm certainly on the latter of the arguments there. I don't think it's really that relevant, and I think we should be careful to not jump to conclusions. Sure, if you see teams from certain leagues consistently putting in subpar performances, you want to be downgrading them. If you use a modelling approach, and if you don't even use a modelling approach, you want to be cognizant of that kind of trend. So yeah, it's something to be factored in, but let's not jump overboard.
Okay, let's move on to Barcelona against traveling to Red Star Belgrade, and Barcelona can be backed on a -2 Asian handicap at -103, and they're a bet for me, Will, here. I'll decide at the end of the show if they are my best bet of the day. It's either this one or the corners market in the PSG, but I just think this is pretty obvious. Doesn't take rocket science to work it out, but I think it's David versus Goliath. I think there's a huge golfing class between the two teams, and Barcelona are playing unbelievably well. -480 on the money line here for them. Red Star you can get at 12-1. The goal line is minus money for over 3.5. And I did look at this because Barcelona could cover it all on their own. But let's be honest, you might as well take the -2 Asian. Really, it covers the 2-0, it covers the 3-0. And so on and so forth as well. So I just think they come here and do a job on Red Star, who might be one of the poorest teams in the tournament. Truth being told, they've been well beaten in all their games. And I do worry for them here that I think Barcelona could put up a big number. Your guys, Barca, this is an unbelievable season for them so far from Hansi Flick. I think they're playing some brilliant football, mate. And you must be so pleased as a Barca fan.
I thought you were going to say proud then, Steve, which I thought was going to be a bit of a strange word to use. But yeah, as a Barca fan, I'm very happy about how things are looking. I think they're obviously it's obvious that Flick has got them really firing right now, and they're as healthy as they have been in a long time. Crazy number of options, especially like if you look at the midfield area. With Gavi back, with De Jong back, with Dani Olmo back, with Fermin Lopez back, and then you've got the starters Pedri, Casado, and it used to be Casado and another La Masia, another Masia, young player from La Masia, but they've just got a crazy number of options, and hence why we see them on a -2 Asian line here. Money has come for Red Star early morning. The handicap is just a big handicap. And according to my ratings, I make Barca fair handicap -1 3/4 here. So even though I think this sets up for a convincing Barca victory, because whoever they start, the second wave in the second half when they make substitutions and they bring on the quality they can bring on. I can see Red Star getting overwhelmed in the second half. They were really, they lost to what is, I think, quite an average Benfica team convincingly at home, and obviously this Barca team is far higher level than that, and they've just got so much depth that I can see it maybe getting out of hand in the second half if that's what Barca wants. Who really knows? Like, Flick doesn't seem to have anything other than full gas mode, but it's really hard for me to get involved in the handicap. So shots on target market, there isn't actually a market for this player. It's Fermin Lopez, probably because he doesn't really start much at all for Barca, but I can't find odds on him anywhere. So hopefully Bet Rivers will have that up closer to kickoff. But Fermin Lopez has ridiculous numbers for Barca. For a midfielder, he averages a massive 1.14 shots on target for Barca over his career, probably against a slightly average, stronger opposition than this Red Star team. And I think if he's anywhere like kind of minus 120 and above, I think that's printing money, really. I don't like saying that because I feel like I'm going to jinx it and the gambling gods are going to teach me a lesson. But yeah, that's as close to printing money as you can find. But unfortunately, no market now, so it's hypothetical. But let's hope that Bet Rivers traders throws a bone and get that market up before kickoff. So that's Fermin Lopez over 0.5 shots on target at, let's say, minus 120.
Yeah, let's see what the lineup is and let's see what the prices are. Barcelona -2 on the Asian line for me at close to even money. And do you know what? Yeah, best bet of the day. I think I'm going with that. I'm not going to overthink it. I've sometimes been caught out before where I'm like, oh, the handicap's too big. I don't rate Red Star one bit at all. And this theory about a tough place to go, it can be. Yeah. But I just think they're a bit battered and bruised. And it gets to a stage where it can't be much fun taking on these teams constantly where you're just clearly second best. Yeah. I mean, that Bratislava game against Man City the other week was horrifically painful viewing. Like, it could have been 9 or 10. And it's just awful. I mean, you want to try and enjoy the moment as these teams and the fans, but the sheer golfing class is just far too much logically, in my personal opinion. Bayern Munich against Benfica. Bayern Munich -375 now on the money line. You can get Benfica as big as +850, the tie at +525, minus money for over 3.5 goals. And I mean, the theme with Bayern this season seems to be, if they're clearly superior, they've been getting the job done convincingly, Will. I mean, they're covering handicaps galore domestically. As soon as they play someone good, there's a bit of a problem on the cards. Leverkusen held them. Barcelona did a job on them. I think the question then is more, we've got to ask ourselves, how good are Benfica? Because that might well determine how, the outcome for Bayern here. And I think they're just, it's just an average version of Benfica. So the handicap at -1.75 on Bayern, and I think there's a few in the comments who did like this. This did catch my eye, but I guess my sort of doubt is, what sort of Benfica are we looking at? Because they did thrash Atletico Madrid in a match already this term. It's where do you have Benfica ranked?
Specifically, I have them ranked 20th best team in Europe. So similar level to Aston Villa, Manchester United, Juventus, Dortmund. That might surprise some people actually with Dortmund, but yeah, and Stuttgart. So around that kind of 20th. So, if you were to look at Bayern, Stuttgart domestically, you're probably looking at a line around this 1 3/4, 1.5 as well. So I think the line's about right, and I think that's about Benfica's standard, personally. I think the goals market is a little bit more interesting here.
Minus money for over 3.5. Are you thinking goals in here, or are you thinking under?
I'm reticent to bet to advise an official bet on a line this high, but Bayern really need this win. They really, really need to go for it. And I certainly lean the over 3.5. Both have gone 2 out of 3 over 3.5 so far this competition. Bayern are actually 11 for 15 this season in all games over 3.5. That's not 2.5, that's 3.5. So with these Bayern games, you kind of have to see the main line as being 3.5 and not 2.5. This is not a normal team. This is a super high gas, super high intensity. This Bayern team just is known for having, especially under Kompany, is just having a crazy high number of goals in their games, and I think Benfica, especially away from home, might just play into that. Like, I think for me, Benfica are a different proposition away from home as they are at home. That Atleti win, that hugely convincing 4-0 Atleti win, was at home, and I think I can't remember their result on the road so far. And who did they play?
Well, they beat Red Star away 2-1,
of course, yeah.
which is, that's a difficult one to judge, isn't it? Because they're so poor. And I mean, you could say, not covering the handicap entirely there is a negative. They lost to Feyenoord at home. So, I mean, domestically, I mean, certainly Sporting are the best team in Portugal. I think Porto probably second best right now. So that's where I would have them at. But they're not bad, but they're not. I mean, someone's put it in the comments there, and it's a very good point, actually, from Peter. Bayern are going to batter Benfica because they need the points and they need the goals. They've lost 2 out of 3 games. The one game they did win was a big one, 9-2 against Zagreb. But yeah, they really do need the win. They're going to be focused on this game. They've got, I think they've got a fairly easy fixture at the weekend as well. From if memory serves me correctly, I think they're quite a big favourite, which they would be anyway. So I mean, you're thinking over 3.5 as a lean here or a bet?
It's a lean, yeah. I mean, you say it's minus money, minus 107. I mean, under's minus 117. So it's the underdog of the two. And I don't think it should be. Both teams to score is short, right? Minus 157. This Bayern backline is certainly vulnerable. So if Benfica score, which the market thinks they will, and I think they will, then, that's one of the 4 goals you need to kind of go over the line. And it's definitely not an official bet, though. It's really hard to tip up an over 3.5 goal line in the Champions League as an official bet between, a very good team and a pretty good team. So that's just a lean for me.
Yeah, my lean would be on the handicap, minus 1.75. I do think Bayern do get the job done with a bit. I mean, the confidence I would have with Bayern on a handicap is that they've been covering quite a lot. When they play well, they're not just winning 1-0 this year. They're winning by quite a few, so they can rack up the score. Someone said there, Foxy, Bayern to have the most corners and Benfica to have the most cards is plus 114. There's a Norwegian referee in charge of this game. I don't think there's actually going to be that many cards here. This Norwegian refs tend to let a lot more go. You have to be doing pretty dirty stuff. I did look at under 4.5 cards for those who can back it. That's gone under 4.5 for this ref in 9 of his last 10 matches refereed in a UEFA competition. That includes internationals. So that could be an angle there. We've got one more game to discuss on the card. Feyenoord against Red Bull Salzburg. Feyenoord now minus 210 at the time of going live. Salzburg at plus 525. We've got a goal line over 2.5 goals is minus 190. Over 3.5 goals is plus 138. I quite like Feyenoord, just from a purely soccer perspective in terms of, I think they get a comprehensive win. But the value might have gone with them, Will, because you're looking at a minus 1.25 agent line now at plus 105. Red Bull Salzburg, this is not the version of Salzburg that we've known in previous seasons, is it?
Not at all, no. And even less so, given they're missing their 3 starting midfielders for this game, which is quite hard to comprehend who they're going to be playing in that midfield. But at the same time, Feyenoord are also quite decimated by injuries. Yeah, I agree with everything you say. Like, it's a short price on Feyenoord here, but it's also at the same time hard to see them not getting the win. I think there's an absolute stonker in the shots on target market. I sound like a broken record on the Champions League this season, but there really is some value there, and I can't believe this price. Igor, not sure how to pronounce this, but Pakshao? Any idea how you pronounce Igor Pakshao, Steve?
Oh, gosh, no. I
Let's
don't.
go with that.
No, I don't actually. I'll try and write him down actually on the banner.
Yeah,
because this is one of those that people aren't going to know who he is. But he's a Feyenoord player, and he's probably going to be their key man in this match.
Exactly.
Now,
yeah. Without so my kind of strategy with Feyenoord has been
shots on target.
Yeah,
just looking at the price.
It's been back Jimenez shot on target, and then he got injured, and then we went on to Ueda for 2 or 3 games, and he's now injured. Pak Shao has played in every game, and he's a winger. He's not a striker at all, but his stats are very impressive. He's been priced like a winger and not a striker. Like Carranza, who I think will start instead of Ueda here, is minus 200, and with much worse stats than Pak Shao, who is minus 134 to have over half shots on target. This Salzburg defense is leaky, to say the least. And Pak Shao averages 0.98 shots on target per 90 over his career, over and 1.2 shots on target per 90 this season. So he seems to be a player that's progressing in terms of his actual output. He's probably going to be the main man here, won't start as a central striker because that's not his position, but far more likely than not to have a shot on target here, especially against a decimated Salzburg midfield. Obviously, that's not the same as a decimated defense, but a decimated midfield, you would think it'll affect their defensive integrity, let's say. So yeah, Igor Pak Shao minus 134.
Yeah, for a shot on target there. I mean, I do think anyone, I wouldn't want to put off anyone taking the Feyenoord handicap minus 1.25 here. And I think they're a really good piece to add to a parlay. I think on the money line, they win. They win the game. It's a great chance for them to get, I think, 3 straight Champions League wins. And the Dutch League's been probably more competitive, a bit like the French League in Europe this year, been better than I thought it's going to be. PSV, we saw them last night, look very, very good. You know, we've had the likes of Ajax are doing quite well in Europe as well. AZ have been competitive. Feyenoord are no mugs. You know, both teams are missing players, but I think the Salzburg injuries are way, way more worse. The chance that Stengs might play here for Feyenoord, he's been out for a while. I think he'll be on the bench, and I think they'll give him some minutes, but they do miss the Japanese guy who you like, and Jimenez has been out for a while now. So it's just the striker spot. I think 2-0 to Feyenoord is a good shout for the correct score here. So that's it. I mean, best bet of the day from me is that Barcelona on the -2 Asian handicap. Really strong pick for me in the corners as well. PSG -2.5 corners and under 2.5 goals. Sparta Prague against Brest. Those would be my 3 in addition to the leans that I put in earlier. What would your best bet of the day be, Will?
Best bet of the day. Yeah, it's got to be one of the shots on target. It would be Fermin Lopez, but because there's no market, I can't really. My best bet of the day, something where there actually isn't actually a market. I think I'm going to go with Pak Shao shot on target -134. That's bettable. That's the current price, I believe, and I reckon that's a good bet. I saw a comment actually from Foxy, I think it was, asked, which of the favourites do we think is most likely to get beat today?
That's a good question, isn't it? Let's have a look. A favourite, a jolly to go down. Do you know what? I would go with crikey. It's not really. I'd go Shakhtar just because I don't trust them.
I think
I'd
actually probably go Feyenoord because yes, they should get the win, but -210 suggests that, you know, Salzburg have still got some players. Yes, they're going to be very light in midfield, but I don't fully trust Feyenoord. I'm with you that the Dutch League has been performing this season, and I've kind of upgraded them a little bit, but you know, they're missing a lot of players too, and I don't think I fully trust them. Yeah, they've got a massive home advantage at De Kuip, but so yeah, don't know. It feels really filthy being on Salzburg. I'm not on them, but I do think Feyenoord are probably the most vulnerable of those short price favourites.
Yeah, it's a funny day. It's mostly like short price, and then we've got teams in, say, the Pick'em, Inter game, and also Sparta Prague and Stuttgart. So there's a few matches. There's not really a proper favourite. Which game for the most goals, Will? Before we go, someone asked that earlier.
Bayern
Which
Benfica.
game are you going to go with? Bayern Benfica. That's your game. Maybe that game with the Barcelona goals total could be a good parlay for someone. Someone did put the Villa team up on one of the comments. It's quite strong. No Duran again. So that's going to be, you know, disappointing for him. But it was obviously a strong Villa team. Watkins is in there, and there we go. That's the team. Sean,
let's go
thanks
Rodgers
very much for that. Rodgers starts.
Let's check that Rogers shot on target price. See if anyone's got on it yet and shortened it up. Where is he?
Yeah, that was one of your
minus
bets.
105 now. What did I tip him up at? Bigger than that. I think it was plus money.
102, I think it was.
So he's already
a little bit of money.
7 cents. I think that minus 105 is probably still worth a bet. What do you reckon?
Rogers, yeah, I mean, I like him. He's a great player. He's actually watched him over the next 2 or 3 years. He could go next level.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy his ascension from Borough to what a pickup that is. I remember Borough fans at the time saying, I can't remember what they got for him, whether it was 20 million or something around that.
Loved it, weren't they?
And they were saying, yeah, absolutely loving this. I'll take 20 million for a 19-year-old, and yes, he's a prospect, but I mean, look at him now. He's going to the top, isn't he? I think that boy.
Villa win to 0, says Foxy at 3-1. Thanks everyone for joining us on Betting Weekly Live Champions League edition. Producer Troy's got a parlay as well. Bayern, Barca, Feyenoord, and PSG all to win. I don't know what that pays, but I'd imagine. I mean, you'd probably get tastier odds than you actually think there.
You definitely get plus money.
Yeah, I think you'd get plus money on there. I mean, those. I mean, I know you've questioned Feyenoord. I do think those particular favourites look pretty strong. There's a match actually live right now. I forgot about this. Europa League, Besiktas Malmo. Has anyone been betting on that? It's 0-0 after 63 minutes. You can bet in running on the BetRivers app or on the website in this Europa League. Besiktas are plus 180 in play for those who are interested in the Turkish team. I don't know how it's going. How did I forget about that game? Because I was just, what are they doing kicking off so early, Will? Anyway. That's my moan of the day. Good luck, whatever you're taking. See you tomorrow on Betting Weekly Live. James Easton's going to be on the show with me. And then we've got Jack Wright on Friday for, a big week on Betting Weekly Live. Thanks very much, Will, for your great thoughts on the Champions League, as always.
Cheers, mate. Best of luck, everyone. Have a good one.
Yeah, take care, everyone. Remember to gamble responsibly. And I'll see you tomorrow on Betting Weekly Live.